off the back of his 2023 FNB Art Prize win, photographic artist Lindokuhle Sobekwa opened his solo exhibition Umkhondo, Going Deeper, at Johannesburg Art Gallery. He was the first artist working solely within the photographic medium to receive the award since Cedric Nunn's inaugural win in 2011. In Umkhondo, Sobekwa navigates profound personal loss and grapples with his sense of belonging. Well, he's in studio to share more on his work and what this exhibition is about. Good morning, Lindo. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Speak to us about the morning and what it's significant for you. You know, you said it has the best light for you as a photographer.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that relationship you have with mornings.
Yeah, morning, usually, the kind of sun that comes in the morning, you are lucky to get like that few minutes golden lighting. But also like in the afternoon, but I rarely work like in the midday because the light is very harsh. As a photographer who uses natural light, not artificial light in his work. So I want to dance with the light, and I think the morning is like the best time, and also the late afternoon when the sun is about to set is another amazing lighting. Yeah.
Let's talk about Umkhondo, Going Deeper. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind this body of work.
Yes. So Umkhondo Going Deeper unites two significant bodies of work. One is I Carry a Photo With Me, which was about my sister's loss. And of course, it sort of retraces her footprint. Her footprint, which leads me to the second body of work, which is called Ezilali in the Country, which is where my sister was buried, and which is, me also kind of investigating my family history, which again is not so immune from the South African history, interested in themes like migration, identity, themes like, the mining, because my family has this kind of legacy of people working in the mine, like my grandfather came here in the 60s, to work in the mines and was one of the people who also disappeared here, and of course my uncle worked in the mine. So there's kind of this long history of people working in the mine. So Umkhondo also is this new kind of exploration that I'm doing of like family tree. So yeah, also the word Umkhondo has a kind of interesting metaphor to photography. Umkhondo has also a double meaning, which can be a trace of something, can be, kind of a footprint of something, can be an evidence of something, and of course it has this kind of interesting play with photography. So yeah, that was the inspiration. And of course also like for the very first time, in the longest time, showing in Johannesburg Art Gallery was, another huge honor.
And you talk about this, how huge it is. The space that is Joburg Art Gallery, for somebody who may not know. Speak to us about the conversations that you were having with the curator about how you wanted, the work to be on display and how you wanted it to sort of trace your family history.
Yes. So yeah, we've had like a long discussion with the curator that I was working with. But the work, because I've been working on this project for the past 6 years, so it has sort of developed its own kind of language, visual language. More especially Ezilali, it's connected through the horizon. It's interesting, like when you're in the landscape of the Eastern Cape, the mountains sort of connects the horizon. I was in different places at different times, but through the horizon, I managed to connect all of these things. But also, like, most importantly, with I Carry a Photo With Me, it was produced as a book. When I was working on the project, I was like populating it with images until I was re-editing it and also, writing on it. So I wanted to look like a diary. And I was lucky in 2021, I worked with Nduduzo Makatini, who's a jazz artist, who responded to the book. So it now has a life of a film, but also it can be a book, can be prints. So I like when photography, can be scratched into, other different mediums, because I think, that's photography is also connected to life, to different mediums as well. Yeah.
And speak to us about, and speaking with and working with Nduduzo,
Yes.
is a very spiritual person, sort of very deep in that. How much of his interpretation, you know, did you take into consideration when this project came about?
So Nduduzo, I worked with him after the book was done.
All right.
And so I asked him to kind of respond to it. And of course, you know, the first piece he sent me, it felt really connected, you know, to the project. And of course, you know, we've talked about this project. So, you know, I think also when he responded, he probably responded from that personal perspective of me, the personal perspective that I had to the book, but also like from him, you know, just responding with his artistic intuition, you know. When you speak about him being a spiritual person, which is why I'm also connected to his music, because also like I'm interested in that as well, you know, also in my kind of photographic work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speak to us about this particular image.
Yes.
This one is the one that, you know, that drew me to your work.
Sure.
Talk to us about what you're trying to say. I mean, there's so much on this week. The moment there's a church that I see as well up there, but speak to us about the amount of work that went into taking this picture.
Yes, so this is the village where my mom grew up in. Mm-hmm. So I went to this kind of, so I mean, I've heard like a lot of stories about Indonga, which is like this land erosion.
Yeah.
That is kind of place that holds a lot of fairy tales, which most of them are quite ghostly. But for me, like I was interested in this land erosion, you know, in next to these houses, you know. And of course, houses are painted, and every house, what was interesting, it has a rondavel, which, you know, a rondavel is one of the significant houses in the African houses. Sorry. So, but also like, you know, this landscape can also represent South Africa, you know, metaphorically. So, in this kind of decay that exists simultaneously with the beauty of, you know, of the landscape, but also like, you know, I mean, with all my work, you know, it's informed by oral history, more especially the landscape that I did, but also like in Thokoza, where I'm from, you know, I went to places where the unrest one took place, mm-hmm. but also I want to look at that place through like a kind of beautiful or poetic perspective, you know. But also, like, if you read the caption, you realize, oh my God, this is what happened in the 1990s in the very same landscape. Mm. So I think photography, it's interesting, you know, in that way that it can play with these metaphors, but also it can be interpreted differently by different, you know, people, you know. It's never one way. Photography is like poetry, you know, we interpret it differently, but we're reading the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you want your audience to take away from this particular body of work? Yes, they'll take away different things for different people, mm-hmm. but for you, what do you want your people to take away from it?
I want the people to take away, I want people to reflect and relate, because mm-hmm. the stories, as much as they are personal, but they reflect to a broader society of South Africa. So I want people to kind of reflect and relate, you know, with these works. But most importantly, I think I want, when people look at this work, to look at twice the way I want them, when they look at this work, to look at the same, to read it twice, the same way they read a poetry, you know, because we have this kind of passive relationship with photography, because we sing a lot, you know, fair enough, but I want people to kind of, you know, spend their time with the work. Pause
yes. A little bit.
Yes.
You know what? We're going to pause our interview there. Lindokuhle, cool. Thank you so much for coming through. Lindokuhle Sobekwa on his new solo exhibition, Umkhondo, Going Deeper. It's showing at the Johannesburg Art Gallery.